Once they were in the car, we went home. I rushed to make dinner, played with them for an hour, and then spent another hour trying to get them ready for bed. Managed to make myself a cup of coffee with the Keurig machine, so I had a bit of caffeine in my system. Thankfully, our local school has a morning program for parents who need to be at work early. I dropped the twins off and making decisions about deals involving a lot of money. Missing for me, and I want to figure out why I feel this way. Tom and Ruth have a sailboat in the Virgin Islands. From the pictures I've seen, it's really nice. Out discussing it with me first? I'm talking to you now. 2 days before you leave. It sounds like you've already made up your mind without any discussion. That's a one-sided decision. I looked her in the face and tapped my finger on the table to emphasize my point. No, you need to call me to get up. I looked at him with a blank expression. I stayed quiet. I knew from experience that whoever starts talking first is often in a weaker position. My wife finally told everyone to sit down. Tom was on my left, Ruth on my right, and my wife sat across from me. I stayed silent. Tom broke the silence. We're so happy that Shelley is coming with us to the Caribbean. I said nothing and looked at my wife. She looked down. Ruth spoke next. She will have a great time. It's so relaxing on the boat. She'll come back like a new person. I glanced at my wife, but she was still staring at the table. I don't want a new person. I work from home. I nodded. Things were adding up. Let me summarize and you tell me if I've got it right. All three smiled brightly. Shelley, you changed your work schedule to spend time with Ruth and Tom. Have you been at their house or ours? The smiles faded quickly. I waited for Shelley to answer. I didn't think you would mind. My income isn't very important. It's not about the money. It's about making big decisions without including me. Let me continue. I looked at all three of them and saw their worried faces. Because of your new friendship with Tom and Ruth, they invited you to the Caribbean for a week and they're paying for it. Oh, I have to pay my airfare. I let that go without comment. And the three of you plan to have a vacation of swimming, sun, and shopping. All three of them looked shocked. Tom recovered first. No, nothing like that. No one mentioned anything else. Not specifically, but let me tell you what I think. Shelley changed her work schedule, maybe to spend time at your house. You work from home, so you're all together often. Over the last month, Shelley has changed her behavior. She dresses differently in the mornings. She's shown more interest in me, which I liked but now wonder about. On short notice, she tells me she's going away for a week with people I barely know. Can you see why I'm suspicious? Their glances at each other told me a lot. Tom tried to save their plan. Bill, you're wrong. There's nothing going on. Shelley told Ruth she was feeling empty, and we thought a trip might help her feel better. Tom, excuse me, but this sounds like you're trying to help Shelley with her problems. I quickly changed my approach. Shelley, I'll be clear. I am completely against you going on this trip with these people. Whether you go or not is your choice. But know that every decision has consequences, and you can't always predict what those will be. That's the risk you're taking. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Since Shelley invited you here without asking me, I shook my head and went back to the pool deck. Soon I heard the kids crying inside. I went in to find the twins clinging to their mother's legs, crying hard. Don't go, Mommy. We don't want you to leave. Who will take us to school and make dinner? Shelley looked at me, hoping I'd help. I sipped my coffee and let her handle it. She knelt down to talk to them. It's okay, babies. Mommy just needs a little time. Daddy will take care of you. I'll be back in a few days and bring you surprises. She stood up, grabbed her bags, and managed to get the twins to let go. I saw Tom and Ruth in their BMW waiting. Tom had the hatchback open, and Ruth was smiling and waiting. The problem. I explained that their mom was away and I was handling everything. She told me about the school's breakfast program, but I didn't have time to sign up then, as I was already easier. The kids dressed themselves. They didn't look perfect, and I'm not sure their socks matched, but they were ready. Knowing they'd eat at school, I dropped them off, did some paperwork with the school secretary, and headed to my office. From school, I had everything set. From school, we went to Walmart. When we left several hours later, my wallet was lighter, and the Suburban was full. We got pizza and had a picnic in front of the TV, which the kids loved. Their mom would have worried about stains, but I wasn't concerned. We ate and watched Frozen on the Disney Channel. I told the kids they weren't going to school for the next 5 days, maybe more. They screamed with joy. I then told them we were going on a trip. We'd leave before lunch, fly over the ocean, and check into a hotel on the beach. More screams and laughter followed. Once they were in bed, I packed for all of us. It was nearly 1 a.m. when I had all the luggage by the door. I hoped I had thought of everything. If not, there had to be a Walmart in the Virgin Islands. At 9 a.m., an Uber pulled up. With the kids' help, we loaded the bags into the minivan and headed to the airport. On the way, I called the school to say the kids would be out for at least 5 days. Traveling on short notice with, then I'll explain the rules on my boat. He led us to a 65-foot sailboat that looked fast even when still. He helped the twins on board, and I handed him the bags. It took a few minutes to settle in. Each twin had a small cabin with a bed, desk, and porthole. I had a slightly larger cabin with a double bed and bath. Captain Jeff kept talking, mostly about how to store our gear and the routine on the boat. The kids listened closely, and I silently thanked them for their good behavior. Once we were settled, we sat in the lounge area. Here are my rules on this boat. No talking back, no arguing. Everyone works. If I tell you to do something, do it right away. If you don't understand, ask. You're here to have fun, but you also need to learn. Dad, our mornings will be spent doing chores on the deck. Once those are done, we can snorkel, swim, fish, or go ashore. If we like where we are, we may stay overnight. Otherwise, we'll sail to our next spot by dark. Sometimes we'll get there before daylight. Annabelle was now standing on the cooler, her hands on the wheel, eyes wide with excitement. Daddy, I'm driving the boat. It was 3 hours. Jeff left me at the helm, which surprised me since I had no idea where we were going. His instructions were simple. Watch the boat. If anything changes, call me. He seemed to enjoy it. He had the kids helping with small tasks like cooking the spaghetti and sauce, preparing garlic bread, and getting salad ingredients from the fridge. Ethan, who usually hated green vegetables, turned up his nose at the salad. Jeff then told a story about Popeye the Sailor Man and how spinach made him strong. He promised to show Ethan the Popeye cartoons before bedtime. The kids and I ate heartily. I watched Jeff as he paid more attention to the kids than I did. Ethan, despite wrinkling his nose, ate about half of his salad. After cleaning up the kitchen, I took the kids to bed. They weren't thrilled, but were tired after a long day. Then this boat came up for sale. It had been neglected, and the marina sold it to Jeff for backslip fees. He used most of his savings to buy and fix it up. 8 years later, he owned 4 smaller boats and part of the marina. He spent his time doing custom charters and managing the marina. He listened to my story and sympathized. Are you going to get a divorce when you get back? I'm not sure. Divorce laws are tough. She would get half of everything, the house until the kids are grown, alimony, child support, and I'd only see the kids a few times a month and on some holidays. That's not an option for me. Jeff nodded. I had more questions. Why are you okay with having kids on board? Most charter captains won't do it. Jeff sighed and took a drink of his beer. My ex-wife got custody of our kids. When I moved here, she wouldn't let them visit even for vacations. I lost touch with them. Now they have kids, and I've never seen my grandkids. Having kids like yours around fills a gap in my heart. I could see the pain on his face. It made me worry about my own situation. Then he asked a surprising question. Where is your wife on this holiday? She's somewhere in the Virgin Islands. She left with her friends a few days before I decided to come here with the kids. She left without warning? She told me 2 days before she left. She didn't ask, just told me. Jeff shook his head and then asked, gliding, a water park, bars, and restaurants. It's a huge playground. One island is adults only with amenities I'm sure you can guess. I think your friends are headed there. So why are we going? For a couple $100, you can buy day passes for you and your family. You can do things like paragliding or scuba lessons that I can't offer. That sounds fun, and the kids would love it. And we might see the easy play. I'm not sure if I want to see them. Why would I? Jeff grinned with a bit of mischief in his eyes. You spent a lot of money on this last-minute trip. You might as well get some satisfaction if you know what I mean. I thought about it. It would be interesting to sail by that catamaran so they'd know we weren't just sitting at home. How will the kids react to seeing their mom? The family island has a supervised childcare area. The kids can have fun there while you explore. Goals. I hope this trip might help me figure things out. At that moment, two smiling faces appeared in the cabin. The twins bounced in, excited for the day. Ethan looked serious. I'm hungry. You're always hungry. He grinned, but Jeff took charge. Breakfast it is. Scrambled eggs, sausage, and toast. Who wants juice? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. We spent the morning sailing. I was learning new nautical terms. I thought the kids might get bored, but Jeff kept them busy, letting them steer and adjust the sails. The auto-navigation system handled most of it. When dolphins joined us, the kids lay on the deck to watch them. Just before noon, we saw the islands on the horizon. As we approached the harbor, Jeff took control. He knew which buoy we'd moor to. I was on the bow with a mooring stick and line. Jeff confidently approached the buoy. I reached out with the stick and missed the first time, but got it on the second try. Cheers erupted from Jeff and the kids. I tidied up the deck and put the moorings. Take the kids and go exploring. This whole island is a big amusement park, and most of it is free for guests. Enjoy yourselves. I'll be on the boat doing some maintenance and then relaxing with a book. When you're ready to come back, check in at the marina office and they'll bring you back in their dinghy. I looked at the kids who were already excited. Let's start our adventure. Jeff, we'll see you later. Do you need anything from the island? No, I'm good. Jeff picked up his gear and I took the kids by the hand and we headed out to explore. It was late when we finally returned in the marina dinghy. Jeff was lying on the cushions in the cockpit reading his tablet and stood up as we approached. Permission to come aboard, Captain? Of course! I had to lift two sleeping children to Jeff. Both Ethan and Annabelle had fallen asleep as soon as they sat in the dinghy. With them aboard, I tipped the boat driver and climbed onto the deck. Jeff was holding Annabelle and took a deep breath. That depends on what you want to do next. And there it was. I had to decide. Jeff could see my uncertainty. Look, you still have a few days. Take the kids to the activities tomorrow. We can then spend the day checking out the other island and see what's going on. I'm not sure if I want to visit that island. I agree, but we can sail around it and see what's happening from a distance. Okay. The next morning, I took the kids ashore after their showers and with fresh clothes. Jeff got the boat ready, and when I returned, we set off. It was a short 45-minute sail to the other island. We entered the small bay under power and slowly approached the mooring area. The Easy Play was the only catamaran there. I didn't know what to expect, but what I saw was not on my list. As we entered the harbor, I used a pair of binoculars to look at the Easy Play. I half expected the boat to be empty while Tom, Ruth, and Shelley enjoyed activities on shore, but all three were on board. Tom was lounging on the trampoline between the hulls. Ruth and Shelley were lying on the deck cushions in the large cockpit area. They were all just relaxing and enjoying the sun. I was glad for that, as it meant I didn't have to explain anything to the kids. I lowered the binoculars and took a deep breath, ready to move on and make the most of the day with my kids. I had to show our passports, but Jeff had warned me about that, so I had them ready in a water as they sat in the dinghy. With them aboard, I tipped the boat driver and climbed onto the deck. Jeff was holding Annabelle, and Ethan was curled up on the cockpit cushion. "Can you carry Annabelle to her cabin while I get Ethan?" "Not a problem." I took Ethan to his cabin, put him on the bed, and tucked him in. He was covered in sand, but I decided to deal with that in the morning. When I came around the corner, I saw Jeff standing over Annabelle as she lay in her bed. He had put her to bed without changing her clothes. I noticed his shoulders rising and falling, almost like he was sobbing. I deliberately closed Ethan's door a bit louder than usual. When I turned back, Jeff was coming out of Annabelle's cabin. "Bill, you might not think so, but you are..." It was a short 45-minute sail to the other island. We entered the small bay under power and slowly approached the mooring area. The Easy Play was the only catamaran there. I didn't know what to expect, but what I saw was not on my list. As we entered the harbor, I used a pair of binoculars to look at the Easy Play. I half expected the boat to be empty while Tom, Ruth, and Shelley enjoyed activities on shore, but all three were on board. Tom was lounging on the trampoline between the hulls. Ruth and Shelley were lying on the deck cushions in the large cockpit area. They were all just relaxing and enjoying the sun. I was glad for that, as it meant I didn't have to explain anything to the kids. I lowered the binoculars and took a deep breath, ready to move on and make the most of the day with my kids. Jeff slowly motored between the boats, approaching the Easy Play. Tom glanced over and didn't seem interested until I took down the binoculars and stared at him. Recognition hit him and he exclaimed, "Son of a gun!" One of the women asked, "What?" I moved closer to the rail as Jeff steered the boat a few meters from the catamaran. Ruth and Shelley looked over and recognized me. Shelley gasped and said, "What in the world?" I raised my hand in a casual salute and then spoke to Jeff. "Captain, I think we've seen enough. Let's leave inside the box." I looked at him, confused. The rum was affecting me. "Huh?" He laughed. "Thinking outside the box. Sometimes doing what your enemy least expects is the best move." I thought about it. Through the rum and emotion, his words made sense. We approached the mooring, and Jeff took the helm while I went forward to secure the line. I did it in one try, despite the rum. As the boat settled, I held onto the rigging and looked out over the ocean. The music from the beach floated over the water. I heard Jimmy Buffett singing, and his words struck me. "And I have found me a home, yes. I have found me a home. And you can have the rest of everything I own, 'cause I have found me a home." I jumped into the cockpit. Jeff looked up, surprised. I grabbed the rum and filled both glasses. As I sat down, I spoke intently. "Jeff, is this boat enough to sail around the world?" "Hell yeah. Several people have done it on a 65-footer. Why? Let's do it." "What?" "Let's sail around the world and live our dreams." "Are you crazy? You've had too much sun or too much rum or both?" "Maybe, but hear me out." I explained my sudden idea. "I won't go back to live with Shelley. I've seen what she is. I don't want my kids exposed to that. Trying to stay together will be toxic and hurt us all." "Yeah, we talked about that. I won't divorce her and give her half of everything. I won't pay child support and alimony so she can expose my kids to her lifestyle. That won't happen. Long in one port, don't draw attention and avoid air travel. It's a risk I'm willing to take. How long would it take you to set this up?" "A week or two. Most of it I could do remotely." "How do you feel about taking on a motley crew, a possible felon, and leaving for parts unknown to have a grand adventure?" Jeff downed the rest of his rum, slammed the glass on the table, and stood up. "Hoist the mainsail, Swabby. It's time to start this pirate adventure." We didn't leave immediately. The resort where we were moored had excellent internet and cell phone access, something I wasn't sure about if we were underway. I convinced Jeff to give me a few days to get started, then we could leave. While the kids played at the water park, I sat under an umbrella and worked on my laptop. My first task was financial. There were several steps. Fortunately, all could be done remotely. I contacted my bank and divided our joint account. Half went to a new account at another bank. Half stayed in the old account, but I removed myself from it. Shelley had a small personal account for her salary from the shelter. Various forums for cruising families provided answers and recommendations. I signed up both kids for a highly rated program and ordered the materials to be delivered to our next port of call. We planned to stop in the Virgin Islands for Jeff to close out his business and upgrade the boat. His partner at the marina promised to have all the equipment ready and to make the turnaround as fast as possible. Later that afternoon, as I waited for the shuttle to return with the kids, I checked the balance in my Swiss bank accounts. The transfers had completed successfully. I had one more task to finish the next morning before we left. The next morning, the kids were sad to leave the island but understood we had to go. Surprisingly, we hadn't seen Shelley, Ruth, or Tom. I was ready for a confrontation but never saw them. I got up early and wrote an email to my former boss. I apologized for resigning by email on short notice, asked for any remaining money to be deposited into my new checking account, and provided the routing and account numbers. The funds would then be forwarded through my chain to my Swiss bank. I also requested. It took almost 4 years. The twins were almost as good at handling the boat as I was, so they were a big help. Once we made it through the canal, I noticed a change in Jeff. We all know this is how life ends. I've had a good run. I have some regrets, but I'm mostly satisfied. You, Ethan, and Annabelle have made these last few years wonderful. I love you like the son I never had, and the kids like the grandkids I always wanted. I have a favor to ask. Anything. What can we do? And the sails billowing in the Gulf breeze. What's going on? He asked. I had set the course on autopilot and hoisted the sails as soon as Jeff wanted to put her to full sail. I'm glad you did it. Where are we? Halfway to Corpus. We'll be there in about 12 hours. We motored into Corpus Christi. They fell into each other's arms, sobbing. After a few minutes, I beckoned them onto the boat. Jeff introduced us. Bill, this is Priscilla, my daughter. I don't even know what last name she's using. I'm Priscilla Johansson, just like my father. I took back the name after my divorce. Bill Spencer, I said. She smiled, and just then, 2 heads popped out of the companionway. The twins, now 11, were curious about the new person on board. I introduced them, and they shook Priscilla's hand, waiting patiently. Annabelle was having a hard time containing herself. Are you really Jeff's daughter? Annabelle asked. I am. Can I ask you a question? Sure. Why did you break your dad's heart? I nearly choked. Jeff looked like a deer in the headlights. Priscilla dropped her eyes before looking back up at Annabelle, speaking sexting, and Jeff looked tired. I think we need to get Jeff back to the boat. He's had a long day. She parked in the garage, and as the door closed behind the Tahoe, we all exited and entered the house through the kitchen. I looked around in awe. After almost 5 years living on the boat, this felt like visiting a castle. Then I realized we didn't have any clothes or luggage. When I voiced my concern, Priscilla waved it off. My sons and grandkids visit regularly. They all have clothes and toiletries here. Make yourselves at home. If things don't fit, there's a mall less than a mile away. We can shop tomorrow. That got Annabelle's attention. Can we go shopping, really? At a real mall? I realized my kids were about to re-enter normal life. I hoped it wouldn't overwhelm them. We got Jeff settled into a comfortable bed after a shower. The kids were already in the pool. I was sitting at the patio table when Priscilla came out with 2 long-neck beers. Can I tempt you? She asked. Absolutely. This is a beautiful house. It's too big for me now. It was full of life and excitement when the kids were here. I'm so sorry my dad didn't get to enjoy those times. If I'm not too forward, what happened? What I now know is that my mother was a cruel and selfish woman. She cheated on my father for years. Priscilla listened as I gave the short version of our trip around the world on her dad's boat. That almost sounds like a fairy tale. It may seem like a fairy tale, but there are enough sad parts to make it a tragedy, too. How so? When Annabelle asked you what happened between you and your dad, I realized I did the same thing to my ex-wife. I didn't want them exposed to that kind of lifestyle. She was bringing different men into the house, and I didn't want my kids to live like that. I wanted them to have stability and love. I understand. And your kids have benefited different. The time you have left with him worth every second. I will take the kids back to the boat tomorrow. Get your dad whatever he needs. I will take care of everything else. You know where to find me. I stood, finished my beer, and went to the bedroom. I slept soundly and woke up happy for the first time in a long while. I found the kids downstairs with Jeff and Priscilla helping cook breakfast. Someone handed me a plate of blueberry pancakes and a full mug of coffee. Life was good. After breakfast, I told the twins we were going back to the boat so Jeff and Priscilla could have some private time. I called an Uber and we were soon on our way. Ethan and Annabelle both knew about Jeff's condition, so there wasn't much conversation. Annabelle broke the silence. Dad, don't you think it's great that Jeff and Priscilla are getting back together? Yes, honey, I do. I'm just sorry it took this long and under these circumstances. Things were quiet as we neared the pier. I was thinking hard. I paid the Uber driver and gave him a generous tip. As we walked down the pier, I made a decision and hoped it was the right one. Back on the boat, we put everything in order as we always did. I grabbed 3 sodas from the fridge and set them on the table. Guys, we need to talk. Both of them sat down. I could see they were worried. I pushed a soda to each of them. They knew something unusual was about to happen since sodas were usually a treat. I want to apologize to both of you. I did something wrong. I thought I was doing it for the best reasons, but now I see it was selfish. I'm going to try to fix my mistake. They looked puzzled. Neither one had opened their soda. Years ago, I got mad at your mom and tried to hurt her as much as I could. In doing that, I hurt you too, even if you don't realize it now. You can that what I did to her was pretty savage. She may even have me arrested for some of the things I did and the way I did them. I am ready to face that. I firmly believe that you two must reconnect with your mother at some level. We continued to talk as they asked how I planned to accomplish the reunion. I was still not quite sure, but my first step would be to contact my old attorney and see if he could track down Shelley. That would happen first thing tomorrow. 3 weeks later, Ethan, Annabelle, and I were in an Uber heading from the airport in our old hometown to a downtown location. My attorney had come through with the information I needed. I learned that Shelley had sold the house and her expensive imported SUV. She had purchased a small condo near the old women's shelter where she had worked. She had returned as a counselor at the shelter, earning a modest salary. But now, almost 6 years later, she was the director and earning significant. It was clear she was in charge. Of course. Stan, take my children and ex-husband to the lounge. I will be there in a few minutes. I need to speak to my secretary and clear my schedule for this afternoon. We were soon sitting in a nicely appointed lounge with a small kitchenette, leather couches and chairs, tables and bookshelves with kids' games and books. We were quite comfortable when Shelley came into the room. She seemed to be in her element and immediately began questioning the kids. Where have you two been all this time? You look marvelous. Have you been in school? Without waiting for their answers, she turned on me with I shrugged, my palms open. Nothing. I don't have a plan. Whatever happens now is up to you. You are in charge. You can take this in any direction you want. She leaned. In 2 years, they will be considered adults and can decide for themselves what they want to do. It's up to you now. I don't think Shelley really believed me. I stayed quiet and let her think. She finally turned to the kids. What do you two think about this plan of your father's? Annabelle, always more direct, spoke quietly. Dad has talked to us about what happened, how he felt, and what he did. We were there. He now realizes that he acted in anger and his decisions were unfair to all of us. He really wants to make things right. If this is what you want and you truly want to be our mother, we will accept that. Shelley listened in disbelief at the way her daughter spoke. She looked at Ethan. Is your sister speaking for you? Yes, ma'am. We understand. You are our mother, and we never really knew what happened between you and Dad. He never said anything bad about you in front of us. He just told us that you wanted more from life than he could give you. Shelley turned her eyes to me. Then she asked, Why did you take off without an explanation? You never even gave me a chance to explain. I sighed and looked at her. Do you really want to do this in front of the kids? They have never heard anything about what happened. She hesitated but then decided to go on. I loved you more than anything. When I saw you on that boat in the Caribbean, I was devastated, ashamed, and embarrassed. Get settled. I'll check in with you in a couple of weeks to see how you all feel. We can make further plans then. I'm heading back to Corpus Christi tomorrow morning. That fast? You're not going to stay and be part of this? I have no part in it. Shelley, I am well past any reconciliation with you. The only thing connecting us is Ethan and Annabelle. I will stay in touch with them. If you need something from me, you will have my number. She nodded solemnly. Her voice cracked with emotion. Thank you. Back in Corpus Christi, I stayed busy making some repairs and upgrades on the boat. I talked to Jeff and Priscilla almost every day. They seemed to be settling in with their mother. I spent a lot of time keeping Jeff updated on what was happening with the boat. Priscilla was always interested in what was going on with my life, my kids, and my ex-wife. I emailed and texted Annabelle and Ethan regularly. I learned they were adjusting well, but were struggling with the changes of living inland and in a condo. Shelley took my advice and had both children tested before enrolling them in the local high school. I was proud when I learned that both of them tested above. I was walking around the boat with the yardmaster when my cell phone rang. It was Priscilla, and I was feeling cheerful when I answered. Hey, Pris, what's up today? My mood instantly changed when I heard her voice. It was strained and emotional. Bill, Dad passed just a few minutes ago. Can you come to the hospice center, please? I'm on my way. I told the yardmaster the situation and he understood. I ran to my rental car and drove quickly to the hospice center where Jeff had been staying the last few weeks. Once there, I found Priscilla standing just outside the door to his room. Inside, the attendants and Jeff's doctor were handling the last details. Without a word, Priscilla came to me, and I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her sobs against my chest. I'm not sure how long we stood like that. Eventually, the doctor came out and asked to talk to Priscilla alone. She nodded and followed him to a consultation room. I took out my phone and made a quick call. Annabelle, is Ethan around? Yeah. What's up? I need to talk to you both. Can you get him? Put your phone on speaker and call me back? He's right here, Dad. Hang on. Safe. I guess I can open it and read it now. Isn't there some sort of legal procedure for that? There may be. I'll call my lawyer in the morning. Right now, I just want to let this all sink in. Please stay with me. I would rather not be alone. Of course, in the water. I took a crew from the boatyard, and we sailed out of Corpus Christi Bay. We slowly worked the boat through testing to make sure all the underwater work was sealed and safe. Then, as I sat at the wheel, we progressively added sail until every bit we could manage was hoisted and filled with the salt air. At one point, I glanced at the panel and saw that the old girl was pushing the 25-knot mark. Jeff would have been ecstatic. We started dropping sails and then turned back toward the bay as the sun was slowly sinking in the west. I could almost hear Jeff cackling and laughing. We put the boat back in the berth and the crew left, headed for the local pub. They invited me, but I declined. Not because I didn't think it would be fun. As I had pulled the boat into the slip, I saw a Tahoe parked in the parking lot and a figure walking slowly down the pier. I secured the boat and climbed up to the dock just as Priscilla came to the courthouse with Priscilla. I met her 3 brothers in the waiting area, was introduced to their wives and kids, and then sort of faded into the back. Yes, sir. Very straightforward, but may have some surprises. It might be easier if I summarize the provision in the will rather than try to read it, if that meets everyone's approval. Everyone nodded, and the judge took a pad and made some notes as he reread the will. He then looked up at us over his glasses, which perched on the very tip of his nose. According to this will, your dad's major assets consist of a bungalow in the Virgin Islands currently being managed by a local vacation rental company, a 1/4 interest in the marina at the same location, 7 investment accounts, 1 for each of his grandchildren, his personal checking account, and a boat. These assets are to be divided in this manner. The 7 investment accounts are in trusts for the grandchildren. There are some specific instructions with the trusts that you can decipher at your leisure. The balance of the assets are to be passed to one. I knew what was in it. He and I talked about it for hours. I spoke with my brothers and they knew too. It wasn't a shock to us. We didn't expect anything anyway. We have a few requests for you. Of course, whatever I can do. First, we had Dad cremated. I want to take him back to the islands and spread his ashes there, where he was happiest. I think that's a great idea. Second, I want you to captain the boat and take me and Dad back to the Virgin Islands. I gulped, tears starting again. It would be my honor. Third, if you don't mind, we hope you keep the bungalow so we can all visit, go sailing, and have you as part of our family. I couldn't speak, so I nodded enthusiastically. Finally, we're all headed to my house for pizza and whatever else we can think of. Please join us. You need to get to know my brothers and their families. I didn't have a choice. I climbed into Priscilla's Tahoe and we were off. So tough. I miss them every day, but I guess that's part of paying for my mistakes. Do you think they'll come back? I don't know. They're living in a new world now and are nearly adults. Pam glanced at Priscilla. No chance you'll stay in Corpus Christi? I don't think so. After those years on the boat, I feel uncomfortable in the city. It's too crowded, noisy, and fast-paced for me now. Back to the ocean? I grinned. Most likely. The next day, everyone else was gone. I made coffee and walked around the pool, picking up floats, pool toys, and towels. Priscilla came out in a knee-length emerald green gown. I tried not to stare, but my self-control was lacking. She grinned at me. Don't be embarrassed. A woman appreciates being looked at. I guess I should have put on something else. No, it's your house. You should feel comfortable. There's coffee made. Great, thanks. She returned with a mug of coffee. I had finished tidying up and joined her at the table. Priscilla held her mug in both hands, speaking quietly. Thank you. You've made this a lot easier. I'm glad I could help. Dad's ashes will be ready tomorrow. When do you want to go to the island? Whenever you're ready to leave. I thought about it. The boat was almost ready. I looked at her. I need a couple of days to finish provisioning the boat. Good. How long will it take to get there? Hey listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales. Never saw it coming. I caught them, exposed their lies. The man I once was is gone, replaced by someone they should fear. This is my story, and their nightmare. I sat down in my recliner and looked at my phone. It was a bit after 9 p.m. and I was really tired. The twins had just gone to bed. I picked up the 6-year-olds from school at 4 p.m., which meant I had to leave work early. Once they were in the car, we went home. I rushed to make dinner, played with them for an hour, and then spent another hour trying to get them ready for bed. I was worn out. I got up and slowly made my way upstairs to the bedroom, leaving my clothes scattered on the floor as I headed for the bed. I lay down on top of the bedspread in my boxers and quickly fell asleep. When the alarm went off at 6 a.m., involving a lot of money. I'm good at it. After 11 years with my wife, 7 of those as husband and wife, warning signs started flashing as I listened to her. You have a great job and career and make more money than we need to live a good life. I decided to say something. Baby, you have a great job too. You may not make as much money as I do, but your job as a counselor at the women's shelter is more important than mine. You help more people than I ever will. She blushed at my praise. Still, there's something missing for me, and I want to figure out why I feel this way. Uh-oh. Now the warning signs were like red flags in a strong wind. I looked at her face and saw an eager look. There was no guilt in her eyes. So you want to get some counseling? That shouldn't be a problem. No, let me explain. You know Tom and Ruth? I nodded. Tom and Ruth lived a few houses down from us. I didn't know them well. I knew that Tom was in real estate and Ruth owned a women's boutique. They didn't have any kids. Tom and Ruth have a sailboat in the Virgin Islands. From the pictures I've seen, it's really nice. They invited me to go down to the islands for a week to sail around the Caribbean. I've never done something like this, and I think it might help me figure out why I feel like I'm missing something in my life. I finished my beer and set the bottle down. When is this supposed to happen? We're leaving on Sunday and coming back the following Sunday night. The silence. We're so happy that Shelley is coming with us to the Caribbean. I said nothing and looked at my wife. She looked down. Ruth spoke next. She will have a great time. It's so relaxing on the boat. She'll come back like a new person. I glanced at my wife, but she was still staring at the table. I don't want a new person. I like the one I have. That made all 3 of them look unsure. Tom stammered a bit before he spoke again. Shelley said you would be okay with her going on this trip. Shelley was wrong. I'm completely against her going on a vacation to the Caribbean on such short notice with people we barely know, leaving her kids and husband alone. Tom looked nervously at Ruth. Ruth took over. We're not strangers. Shelley and I have been having coffee together often. I looked at Shelley. She was still staring at the table. I thought you worked at the shelter every day. Shelley, and shopping. All 3 of them looked shocked. Tom recovered first. No, nothing like that. No one mentioned anything else. Not specifically. But let me tell you what I think. I am completely against you going on this trip with these people. Whether you go or not is your choice. But know that every decision has consequences, and you can't always predict what those will be. That's the risk you're taking. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Since Shelley invited you here without asking me, I see no reason to stay any longer. She can have her friends over whenever she wants. I'm tired, and I'm going to bed. I left without saying goodbye. Upstairs, I changed clothes, turned out the lights, and got into bed. I lay on my side with my back to Shelley's side of the bed. I fell asleep easily. I don't know how long Tom and Ruth stayed talking with Shelley. I didn't wake up when she came to bed. I usually sleep in a little on Saturdays. When I got up, I put on work. That's not true. I'm doing this for us. I shook my head and went back to the pool deck. Soon I heard the kids crying inside. I went in to find the twins clinging to their mother's legs, crying hard. Don't go, Mommy. We don't want you to leave. Who will take us to school and make dinner? Shelley looked at me, hoping I'd help. I sipped my coffee and let her handle it. She knelt down to talk to them. It's okay, babies. Mommy just needs a little time. Daddy will take care of you. I'll be back in a few days and bring you surprises. She stood up, grabbed her bags, and managed to get the twins to let go. I saw Tom and Ruth in their BMW waiting. Tom had the hatchback open, and Ruth was smiling and waving. The twins were still crying as the BMW drove away. I gathered the kids and promised them breakfast. I didn't plan to cook, but they loved the chocolate pancakes at IHOP. After breakfast, we spent the morning at the park. I met some other moms there and we chatted while the kids played. They were friendly, and soon I was part of the conversation. One of the women asked if I was a single dad, and I joked that I was for the week. This led to many questions, but I deflected them, saying my wife was on a family trip. Lunch was at McDonald's, which had a play area. It wasn't the healthiest meal, but it kept us out of the house, and I had some adult company. I even met 3 other dads there with their kids for court-appointed visits. I didn't ask too many questions out of respect, which the kids loved. Their mom would have worried about stains, but I wasn't concerned. We ate and watched Frozen on the Disney Channel. I told the kids they weren't going to school for the next 5 days, maybe more. They screamed with joy. I then told them we were going on a trip. We'd leave before lunch, fly over the ocean, and check into a hotel on the beach. More screams and laughter followed. Once they were in bed, I packed for all of us. It was nearly 1 a.m. when I had all the luggage by the door. I hoped I had thought of everything. If not, there had to be a Walmart in the Virgin Islands. At 9 a.m., an Uber pulled up. With the kids' help, we loaded the bags into the minivan and headed to the airport. On the way, I called the school to say the kids would be out for at least 5 days. Traveling on short notice with kids can be tough, but we were excited. We boarded the plane with no problems, and 6 hours later we landed in the Virgin Islands. A shuttle took us to the beach resort. We tossed our bags in the room, changed into swimsuits, and hit the beach. The kids were thrilled, and I was too, with a Mai Tai in hand. We stayed at the resort for 2 days. We found not only a beach, but a huge water park with a lazy river, slides, splash pads, and a wave pool. There was also a bar where friendly island staff kept my drinks coming. Life was looking up. While the kids played, I made some calls. I didn't plan to spend all our time, but I didn't want to take young kids on their boats. Captain Jeff seemed excited to do it. Now let's get this boat out of the marina and onto the ocean. Your dad isn't paying me to sit at this dock. We're going sailing. Screams and excitement. I watched as Jeff skillfully maneuvered the boat out of the marina. He only used the motor to get us out of the slip. As we entered the channel, he began giving orders. Bill, see that blue line at the bottom of the mast? Grab it and unhook it from that cleat. Then lead it to that winch and wrap it 3 times clockwise around the winch. When I tell you, hold the end of the line and crank that winch hard. The water was clear and I could see the bottom. The kids love spaghetti and I'm easy. As long as it's edible, I'm good. Jeff grinned. After some basic bathrooms and tidying